Hi team, so we've got an exciting video for you today. What we're looking at is an arm bar, but a certain type of arm bar. It's actually a Kimura. So with the arm bar, what we normally look at is, straightening our partner's arm too much so they have to tap, or hyperextending their arm, like the Juji Gatami. So let me remind you what that looks like. So if Ruby's down on her back, you remember you got one leg over the belly, one leg controlling their head, and then grabbing the arm at the wrist and then pulling it over your hip and making your partner tap because you're extending the arm too far. Today we're looking at the Kimura. Well, firstly, why is it called the Kimura? Well, the Kimura was a judo player from Japan who went to Brazil and trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and was catching everybody with the Kimura. And that was his name. His name was Kimura. His last name was Kimura. So that's where the name Kimura comes from. It's a figure 4 arm lock, okay? So it's not hyperextending, it's not straightening the arm, it's twisting the arm. Sometimes you feel it in the elbow or the shoulder. You have to be a little careful with the Kimura. You can't put it on too quick, like all submissions, like anything. But, this is one that's very strong. But you can do it in your division. You can do it in class. So we have to learn. And it's a pretty easy one to practice on someone at home. Even if they don't train, you can just, get them to lie down and just practice, getting the grips on the arm, which I'm about to show you. So we're in cross-face side control. All you guys have seen cross-face side control. Why we're like this, I can actually, keep my weight on top of my partner as I do the Kimura. So firstly, we're looking at wrist control. There's many ways to get the arm out, but let's just reach on top and push our partner's arm to the floor. We're looking at how the Kimura works. So what we want to do is make sure we grab our partner right at the wrist here, okay? Making sure you're not grabbing the hand or up the forearm. You really want the wrist. Really, your middle finger right over where the wrist bends is the best spot because you want to get at the end of the lever. Because what we're doing is doing this twisting action on our partner, okay? So you don't want to be trying to twist someone with not much leverage. You're doing jiu-jitsu and it is all about leverage, right? So you want to get on the end of the lever at this end, not the hand because that won't work. You have to get on the wrist. And you want to get on the end of the lever at this end. So when you reach underneath, making sure that your arm is right under the elbow here. And now you're grabbing your own wrist. Make sure when you have this, you keep your weight on your partner here. This is the setup for the Kimura, okay? This is from side control. This is one of the best ways to understand the mechanics of the Kimura. The Kimura can be done from so many places, but this video is mainly just talking about how structurally or mechanically or how to hold it, how it works. Now, there's a little detail I want to show which the camera's in the wrong spot, so I'll get Ruby to lay on her side and face the camera. And just lay on your shoulder, yep, and bend your arm at 90 degrees here. So just pretend now this Ruby was laying on the mat when I've grabbed the wrist and I was laying underneath. Make sure when you grab your own wrist, you don't grab here. See how there's all daylight through there? I'm talking about this space here. You don't want any of that. You want that all gone. So make sure that everything's hidden like that. So to do the Kimura correctly, not having a big hole, I'm talking about this area right here, that can't be there. You need to be all gone. So it's all tight around your partner's arm. See how there's no space now? How my hands are all around really tight here? That's how you need to do the Kimura, okay? So once again, you've planted the hand on the floor, making sure your hand comes underneath and all that space is gone, okay? So now what I want to do is start to lift up the elbow, okay? Now, with almost all arm bars attacks is you need to control your partner's head. So if I just, pull up hard here, Ruby can start to lift her head and she comes up with me. So to do the arm bar from the side control here, what I must do is control Ruby's head. So what I want to do is walk my hip up to Ruby's shoulder. So my hip is on Ruby's shoulder here. So I've got my weight on Ruby's shoulder. And then my leg is going to step over her head like this. So see now all my weight is on top of Ruby's shoulder. So now she can't come up. So you move from side control, your hip goes on top of their shoulder. So my hip goes on top, and then my leg steps over the top. Now I do that with the Kimura grip. So I've got the Kimura grip. I get it set up, grabbing the middle finger on the wrist, nice and tight, grabbing your own wrist. My leg, my hip walks up to Ruby's shoulder, and I step over the head. Now with this, I want to lift the elbow up. See, Ruby can only sit so far. Now she's tapping my back because she can't come up anymore because her head's caught under my leg. So I'm controlling Ruby's head as I put pressure on her arm. Almost all arm bars, almost all, you need to control the head. So with the Kimura as well, the head control is important. There will be times where you can see the Kimura done and it works without controlling the head, but we're looking at trying to make it as strong as we can in this video. This is what we're focusing on, is how to make it strong as we can. So we've all wrestled people that are much bigger and stronger than us, right? So we've got someone who's got is a bit older than you, a bit bigger than you. They're going to be stronger than you when their hands in front, when their hands in front of their body. They're very strong. But the second, doesn't matter how strong someone is, if you put their hand behind them, they are weak. So that is the goal we want for the Kimura. That's the goal we want. You might not even have to get it to there before they tap. But for the perfect Kimura, which we want to do in our class, right? We want to get the wrist. We want to come over there. I want to put my hip on top. I step over the head. Now when I lift, I'm starting to push Ruby's already tapping, but I want to push her hand behind her back. See, now look. See how her hand is starting to come behind her back? Now Ruby's much weaker. If her hand's here, she could fight pretty good here. We could fight back. But if I get Ruby's hand to here, not strong at all. So that's what we're looking at. My elbow comes down and I'm like, she's tapping again. Trying to get the hand behind the back here, okay? So how are we going to practice this? The main parts I want you to remember before we're back in class from lockdown is you're in side control. You get the wrist to the floor, okay? Once you have the wrist to the floor, I want you to make sure your middle finger is on their wrist, holding strong here. Some people like to use the thumb, some people don't. You can choose what's best for you. Come underneath, grab your own wrist, making sure there's none of that space that we spoke about earlier in the video. You're all tied around their arm. Now move your hip up to their shoulder, step over their head. Start to lean through, and Ruby's tapping my back. Thanks, Rubes. Now that is the Kimura. That is a submission that you'll be using for all your jiu-jitsu career. It's one of the fundamental submissions. It is an arm attack. It is a great one. Now that can be done from so many positions. The examples that come to mind straight away would be guard. You could do it from close guard. You could do it from half guard. You can do it from side control. You could do it from like, when you're on top, like a north-south position. You can use them to control people. So you can use it to control them so it limits their movement, and you can also use it to for a submission. But the Kimura is something that it's a fundamental part of jiu-jitsu. Fundamental meaning like it's a basic part that you're gonna have to be good at jiu-jitsu. So that's why we're doing it today. Just make sure you understand how mechanically to do it. You grab the wrist, right at the wrist, you reach under and grab your own wrist, and your ideal is to control the head and get their hand behind their back. We'll be looking at this in more details in class. I'll do another video if we're still in lockdown next week. I'll see you soon, guys.